All right. What's good? God is good. I'm your host, J.DIDIT. Welcome to Thursday Therapies, which is a safe space for you to lay your shit out, where we are bringing awareness to mental health. I have Christina, She Wrights, with me. She Wrights is from the Sacramento poetry scene. How you doing today?
You know, I always say the closer I get to Friday, the better my week is going. And it is Friday Eve.
It sure is.
So I'm doing great.
It is. You had a blessed day today?
I did. To be honest, I think, I struggle with an ongoing health challenge. I have what's called T-cell cutaneous lymphoma. It's not curable, so I'm constantly going through different treatments, and I started my day this morning with radiation. That was what I did before I went to work this morning.
You are amazing.
You
are amazing, because every day I see you are just bright, shining a light, and you're just so amazing. Wow. I never knew that you had to go through that daily. Wow.
Yeah, so I'm feeling good. But it's not the way you want to start your day.
Right. But you sure mastered it, and you are amazing. God is good. You are.
All the time.
Yes, He is. So what are you doing for self-care during the weeks? I know that it's a struggle, a challenge.
Self-care is something that I try not to sensationalize, I feel like when I hear people talk about self-care, it's like, oh, I'm getting a facial or I'm getting a massage. And for me, self-care, especially because of my demanding health issues, is stuff like poetry.
Right.
Because I need sometimes just to not be overwhelmed by the fact that my body is like constantly not wanting to do what I wanted to do. Right. I like to spend a lot of time by myself. Not doing a whole lot, like literally just sitting, relaxing, sitting with my thoughts. Self-care for me is like not over-programming myself or over-scheduling myself with things I don't enjoy. Right. Food is super important for me, for all of us, right? Because we humans, we got to eat multiple times a day. So at the beginning of every week, I try to prepare myself like a couple things that are just quick and there, so that I don't have to like think too much about that. I will say that lately I don't eat stuff that's super healthy. I satisfy my tongue probably more than I satisfy my digestion and all that other stuff.
I was going to say, how does that make you feel through the week? Is it tough? Are you noticing the signs?
Well, funny you should say that, because I'm a vain person, right? So I'm usually a person that's like running, doing yoga, not for self-care, just because I want to look good.
Right.
Just being honest. But I saw some videos of myself yesterday, and I was like, "Ooh, girl, you might need to get that running back going." Not that I think I look bad,
right?
Just that I'm usually a little more fit.
Right.
And
I feel the same way, girl. I feel the same way.
Yeah,
I'm like, get it together, girl.
Yeah, I gotta get it together. So, I think I could afford to put more time into being active. Okay. I walk, but I'm not doing a whole lot of movement right now. So, I think music is always a thing. My mom always played music in the house. Yes. And it's funny how music can just completely alter my mood. So
100%.
Music is the thing.
100%. Music has gotten me through my entire life, actually.
Absolutely.
Okay, so as you know, Thursday Therapies is a discussion on mental health awareness, and I want to get your outlook on mental health.
Yeah. One of the things that I always say when it comes to mental health is it's easy to ignore. Mm-hmm. If I was to come over there and cut your arm open right now, and you start bleeding, you would immediately think you should go to a doctor.
Right.
But when we have stuff that's like with our mental, we could be cut and bleeding out, but it's internal, so it's easy for us to ignore.
Right.
And so I always say it's a good idea to prioritize your mental health as much as your physical health, because if your mental health is bad or deteriorates, it won't matter that you can move if your mind don't want to.
Well, your mental health will stop you from moving.
It will. Absolutely.
It physically will. If your mental ain't right, your body will start shutting down.
Absolutely.
Completely.
And for me, I wake up every day and see myself, right? I see the physical changes from my illness.
Right.
And so, mentally, it requires a lot for me sometimes to, my appearance changes a lot.
Right.
I even joked, it's not a joke though. Recently my fingernails grew back. My fingernails fell off. Right. And I found out, all the things that it's hard to do, like you can't even put on a necklace if your fingernails are falling off, right. And
you
so
very strong. Wow.
I have to like constantly, mental health for me is I don't want to say more important than physical health, but it has to be, because I have to constantly be like motivating myself.
Right. Every day.
Every single day. Every moment. Every moment. There's not a moment like I can't leave the house without sunscreen.
Right.
Or, some type of barrier. So like mentally I have to be strong so that I can do all of the things that I need to do to just to take care of myself.
The day and then
just to survive the day.
Back up and do it again.
Yeah.
Wow, you're amazing. You are truly amazing. I'm learning so much more about you. I want to ask you this. Mm-hmm. At what age were you when you heard the term mental health?
Ooh. I want to say I was in undergrad. So maybe like 18, 19. Okay. I work in education now, and, mental health is like all the rave.
Right.
There's posters everywhere. There's, there was free therapy for me when I was a student too. But in comparison to how you hear about it on college campuses and just in general now, I feel like I was just hearing about it. And I even remember when I started going to therapy, as a recommendation from somebody at my university. Wow. I didn't even tell my family, because my family was always kind of like, we don't tell people our problems.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
We gonna pray about it.
Right.
Which I'm not, I'm not saying that those aren't methods that could work for coping, but I do think that...
But there's certain things that should be said, and there are certain things that shouldn't be said. But when it comes down to detrimental living, every day-to-day living, then... You need to speak to somebody.
You need to speak to somebody. And you need to speak to somebody, not just, where you can just kind of trauma bond.
Right.
Like when you speak with a professional, while they may have personal experiences with what you're talking about, they also have like the professional experience of active listening and being able to give you remedies that are going to be things you can do right now.
Right. And other resources.
And other resources.
Absolutely. And it just gets your mind going.
Yes.
There's so many different resources out there. Like I said, I've done been in so much therapy since I was an adolescent.
Yeah.
So I've been learning about their mental health for a very long time. Back then it was like, we didn't talk about it. Like, I don't have that. My mom would say, we don't have that.
I'm not
we're
crazy.
Not taking that. We're not taking that. You're not taking that medicine. Or, they try to give you some medicine, and we're not taking that. We don't do that around here. So
absolutely.
But I've been learning about it for so long, because I'm like, it's dysfunctional. There's so much dysfunction in my life. There's so much dysfunction in my family. I wanted to figure out, like, what is this? What is this? And I didn't really learn about it, really what dysfunction meant, until I got to college as well.
Absolutely.
As well.
I mean, I think a lot of us, we kind of think it's normal,
right?
Because it's like, it's not just in our families, it's what our friends know. It's because we tend to spend time with people whose situations are similar to us,
right?
And so, I mean, when I first heard about mental health, I think about it now, like I will put on my calendar that I have my therapy appointment, and it's not even like something you hide or if anything, it's like you want people to know that you're trying to take care of yourself.
Yeah, this is my self-care.
This is my self-care. Absolutely.
Like
my
for
real
self-care.
Facts. Right. But I definitely feel like when I first learned about mental health, it was kind of like, oh, there's some stuff going on with you that maybe you need to talk to somebody about, but it was they had way more stigma. Way more stigma than there is right now.
You're crazy.
Yes.
Absolutely. Crazy. Oh, she's crazy. Oh, there she goes. She's crazy again. That was always, still is. And I try to I know I said crazy, and I try to avoid even using that language, because I didn't realize how even, that's where some of the stigma comes from, is the labeling that you get. I have taken medication for my anxiety and depression over the years. It's something that I've always struggled with. Right.
I'm happy to say that currently I'm not, because I've learned, like, the right coping skills to not have to be dependent on a drug.
Right.
But it took time. It took time for me to get to a place. To acknowledge it. Yeah, everything for me has to start with awareness.
Right.
And once you have that awareness, you can't do better.
Right.
You misdo better. It's like, I feel like now I want to be in charge of myself. And I don't ever want to be dependent on something that I may not be able to get.
Right.
And so, and I hate to say this, but I tell people, like, the pandemic was like a big time for me to like readdress how I was living my life.
Right.
It was not a sustainable life.
Right.
But I didn't know that until we slowed down and I had a chance to start thinking about like how you eat affects your mood.
I think a lot of us really, you know, it's still affecting a lot of us. It's hitting us, and people are still trying to figure out how to navigate their lives after the pandemic. And just really trying to survive, because so many sicknesses came from that. The stress rate was so high.
Oh yeah.
You know, so many people just, you know, passing away, and then just having to deal with all that trauma. It's been scary.
It's been really scary. It's been really scary. It for me, it just, you know, I try not to trivialize the fact that this pandemic broke people's families, right? My family wasn't personally impacted in terms of death, but I think for me, it gave me remote work.
Yeah.
And that gave me an opportunity to kind of recenter my life.
Right, and get to know yourself.
Get to know
what
myself.
You really, truly, genuinely need to survive.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
So my next question is, how did your family handle mental health issues in your home? So, like you say, you didn't really hear about the term mental health until you were out of the home, but there still were issues in the home, as there are in every home. Like, you know, how did your family deal with that?
You know, my family doesn't have the same feelings about mental health as I do.
Right.
I
feel you.
And I you know, it's, you ever heard this saying, a lot of us go to therapy because of the people in our lives that won't go to therapy?
Right. Yeah.
And I would say
that's
my situation. You know, in my family, there is mental health issues. There is alcoholism and other substance abuse. And I think, you know, mental health for me is something I've been working on for a long time. And there are levels. There are stages to it.
Oh, yes.
And I think if I had thought about where I wanted to be when I got started, it would have been too intimidating to get started.
It is.
It's intimidating.
No, it is.
Because it never ends.
It never ends, and it brings up hurts from your childhood, and that childhood is the trauma. That's where all the trauma comes from, the mental health. That's what leads to mental health and drug addiction and you know, all the other addictions and dysfunctions that come into your life. So if you don't deal with your mental health or know how to deal with it, then you're going to grab anything in sight
to just numb you
that.
and so I would say, unfortunately, I would say overwhelmingly, my family is really small, but I would say the younger, you know, me, my cousins, only a couple of us like are very upfront about the fact that we use therapy as opposed to using other things.
Right.
But I will definitely say it's something that I wish my family was a little bit more interested in just starting their journey.
Right. And
not being so overwhelmed by like all the things that you have to, because once you start pulling it out, you gotta put it back in. and like I said, I think for me it started so long ago that I've had a chance to kind of learn how it feels when you pull out too much and how to kind of reset yourself and tuck it back in and all of that. I do wish that my family would be a little bit more engaged, not only in my process or the ways that I want to grow and change, but I would love it if they would start their own journeys with finding
well, this might be their time. Hopefully they'll be able to see the episode and be able to know that, you know, mental health is serious, you know. Take care of yourself, because nobody's going to come do it for you.
They're not. And even if they are going to, they can't do, nobody knows how to take care of you better than you. Right.
And that's the hardest part is to start.
The hardest part is to start.
You got to start with yourself.
Yes.
So that's yeah, my family was the same way, you know. What happens in the home stays in the home. Be careful what you tell people. Don't tell people this. Don't tell people that.
Yeah.
And you know, you just walk around fucked up pretty much, you know, not really knowing what's going on.
Absolutely.
And just acting and reacting and, you know, just surviving because of what you see or what you went through, and you just you really don't know what to do with it. So it's coming out in different ways that may not be pretty.
It's not. I mean, I haven't seen anybody neglect their mental health and have it be okay.
Right.
Like, maybe you're okay today,
right.
but it's not sustainable. At some point, you will have to deal with it. It's just a matter of time.
It is.
It's, it's just going to be that triggering life event. It's going to be something that's going to happen.
Right.
And I think for me, I'm the type of person that would rather be a part of my change than to feel like I have to change all of a sudden because something happened.
Exactly. I'm like, I gotta know.
I got.
There's preventatives. Like, I gotta get my blood test. I gotta do this.
Yes.
Because I would rather know than to not know. Like,
I would rather know.
I would rather know.
I would rather
handle
know.
it. Then handle it.
Yes.
Give it to me. Give it to me now,
yes.
so that I can take the next steps to figure out what I need to do next.
Yeah, and if you find out early enough, you can baby the steps a little bit more. As opposed to, like, if you wait till you hit that wall, then the first step has to be huge just to, get you back to zero.
Right.
And so, the deficit thinking, honestly, and I think it's important to have, like, a vision for what you want your life to look like. Because I think that's for me, like, there are days, too, where, like, there are days where I wake up and I don't want to deal with what I'm going on with my health, right? I mean, I was diagnosed like 7 years ago.
Wow.
I've had, in this 7 years, multiple treatments, and I have had at least a solid year where I just refused to go. I just was like, I don't want to.
Wow.
And I paid for that, right? Because things were happening while I was trying not to, deal with it.
Right.
And then it was like, now I have to take these drastic measures. And so for me, it's like, I would rather be able to take the baby steps.
Yes.
And
they're manageable. They're easier to manage, and get the support while it's there, and before it becomes detrimental.
Yeah, because once it's detrimental, it's like now you need a level of help that you're embarrassed about.
Right, and then things start falling off.
Things are falling off, and now you can't function in other areas of your life. And I think for me, having a vision of like what I want my older years to look like has made it easier for me to say, okay, I got to show up for myself in these ways a little bit each day, so that by the time I get there, because I mean, I'm thinking I'm gonna be living for a little while,
a little while, long while. God's got your back.
I think so it's like, even if I just have like minimal life expectancy, I still got at least about 35 more years to be here. And so I just think it's better for me if I could just do a little bit every day.
And you're doing it because you look amazing. You look amazing. Every time I see you, you're just so bright. Like, every time I see you with a smile on your face.
Well, y'all, you are seeing me at a very different time. I'll be happy to show you some videos later of what I looked like in May. When I literally had this whole side of my face was a tumor. Like, I was in a different place then. I think mentally I've always been super positive. My mom is like one of the most positive, most outgoing people you will ever meet. And I thank her for like passing that down to me. And I've always been able to like find a way, but I've definitely had my moments where, I wasn't bright and shiny.
Oh, girl.
Oh,
I get it.
Yeah,
yes.
I've definitely been there.
Okay, so my next question is, do you ever witness mental health disparities in your home or in the community? And how does that make you feel?
Absolutely. So professionally, I'm a retention specialist for universities. So after the university admits you, until recently, I started a new job about a year ago where I'm not a retention specialist for the first time in 10 years. But typically, if I'm meeting with a student, it's because they are not being academically successful, and it's usually because of the social, personal, and financial challenges that they're having that are preventing them from being able to show up academically the way they want to.
Right.
And so as I'm, typically working with students who have been underserved by higher education, I'm constantly irritated at the disparities of these students just want to get an education.
Right.
But the circumstances of their life, like you said, childhood, different things that they've endured, a lot of them want to go to college because they want to create social mobility for their families.
Right.
But they get there and find out, I'm not even prepared to participate as a student, because being a student might at this moment be the most salient part of my identity. But I got all these other identities that are now showing up. I work at a university that is expensive. Yeah. And so if you're a student that's low income and you're showing up and you're seeing students with laptops and fancy bags and fancy cars and you don't have any of that, you know, that creates a strain, right? That disparity.
And it messes with your mental,
It messes with your mental.
Really does.
And then, you know, even just access of knowing how to use services and resources without the stigma of people thinking you need it because of, you know, who you are, you know. And so it's led me to seek out psychosocial like research, like learning more about imposter syndrome, so I can help students like understand, like, yeah, you got those feelings because like these
XYZ,
this is totally a legit feeling, but this is just a feeling,
and it shall pass.
It shall pass, and it's something that you can move forward with. And so I'm more aware. And the other thing is the students that I serve, I was that student. I was a first generation college student from a low income family, and so it's a lot of the stuff that is happening with them is stuff that also happened to me.
So
and
it's very relatable.
It's very relatable, and it's disappointing to see how these universities can, you know, continue to have these great reputations, but they aren't able to deal with this big social problem of helping students who are willing to do the work, but just need a little bit more support. Based on the fact that these institutions weren't created for them. They weren't created for people like them.
Right. Well, that's commendable for you to do that job. I mean, just for you to be able to be that, you know, be that the face to help folks in that area. That's amazing.
Well, I had a lot of advisors and mentors that did that for me when I was a student.
That's good.
And so it feels like the best way to give back. And like students, they see somebody who looks like them, and then they get to learn more about my story. And now it's like, oh, well, okay, I could do this. I could do this, right?
I could do this,
And so I honestly feel more honored that I get to be a person that can help them, and I also feel honored that I get to like pay forward what so many people have, you know, sold into me.
It is. It's a beautiful thing. It is such a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So, we already answered this question, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Do you believe in seeking mental health support? And do you yes, of course.
Hardcore, yes.
You recommend it. I highly recommend it. Check yourself. Check your mental health. I highly recommend it to everybody and anybody, you know. Just go get a therapist, counselor, you know, social worker, somebody just to talk your feelings out. Get it out of your body, right?
Absolutely. I recommend professionals because I have friends, right? I have friends that I know I can talk to. I can, you know, be my most vulnerable self. I can talk about the things that are issues, things that I'm still working on. But there are times where it's hard for you to heal from something if you haven't been able to like remove the sting from it. And if you're telling it to somebody who you think is judging you, or if you think they don't understand, So it's like when you go to a professional, it's not to say that they don't have their own biases, because I'm a professional, I still have biases. But I know as a professional, I have to like, they can't come out. Right?
Yeah, you have to. It's a non-judgmental.
It's a non-judgment, and in general, it should be a safe zone. Like, and I tell people, I am judgmental. There are things I judge. I think we all judge, right? Like, you chose that shirt because you thought it was good.
Everybody does,
right? We all do. It's right. It is good. I agree, right? But it's like when we don't realize that we make judgments about everything, the things that we buy, the things that we choose to participate in. We're choosing to do those things because we think those things are superior to the other option, right?
Absolutely.
And so like I don't necessarily need somebody to like not have an opinion or perspective about what I'm going through, but I do need them to not make me feel like shit about it.
Exactly. And that's what therapy is for, you know, but what I've experienced is you come here, you tell me, you lay your shit out, you know, and then they can give advice, I can give advice, and you can take it or leave it. It's up to you, you know. We can work on coping skills, you know, I can refer you somewhere.
Exactly.
And so, you know, and if it's not a fit, it's not a fit.
Yes.
And I say to everybody, if it's not a fit, it's not a fit. Find a new therapist. Find a new counselor. Yes. You know, because if you're getting referred or you have to see therapists, but you don't like them, so you stop going, don't stop going.
Yes.
Don't stop going.
Don't stop
Find somebody who fits your personality, who fits your problems. You know, find somebody.
I'm glad you said that because I have had therapists I didn't like.
Right. Me too. Many.
In the beginning, I don't want to say I didn't know that I could just not be with them.
Right.
But I'm very selective at this point in my life as a person who has been a therapy user for over a decade.
As you should be. As you should be.
Now I know, like, I want a therapist that's like this, and I want one that's like this. Right. And, you know, the good thing, too, I will just say, shout out to my health insurance. I have access to mental health counseling through work. But because of my ongoing health issues, and they know it can make a person depressed, they always have like a medical social worker or a medical therapist.
And that makes all the difference.
It makes all the difference.
There are specialties in so many different, you know, health issues.
Yes.
And you don't want to have a therapist that knows nothing about
what I'm experiencing.
PTSD. Yes. Or, you know, I mean, they're going to know that. Yes. But what you're experiencing, like you said, you know,
it's very
they know
helpful.
more on the medical side.
They do.
As well as the therapy side, you know, the mental health side. So it just coincides.
Yeah, the strategies are just so much more like targeted, I feel like. And so, I mean, I tell people, you know, shop around. Like, you know, when you date, just because you go on a date don't mean we together.
Right. Facts.
You know, we just trying it out.
Right. So try out.
You know, date the therapist.
Right,
you know, take them for a spin.
Right.
And if you don't, you know, feel that connection, you know, like when you meet somebody and you get the butterflies, you're like, oh, this is good. I like them. Like if you meet a therapist and you get negative feelings right away, then you know it ain't a fit, because you're not going to be able to talk to somebody openly if you don't
feel right.
If you don't feel
you gotta
right.
go with your gut, your mental, you know.
Yeah.
You gotta
and so you got to trust your body. And, you know, it's also like, as a Black woman, I'm at a point too where I want specific types of therapists. One, lately I prefer men.
Right.
I feel like the women be trying to be my friends, or they be trying to coddle me like, oh, you've been through this. I'm like, I don't need that.
Right.
Maybe somebody needs that brand of therapy. I don't.
Tell it to me raw and uncut.
Tell it to me raw and give me tasks.
Right.
I'm the type of person that I want to be able to tell you, like, okay, this is what I was dealing with. Mm-hmm. And then I want you to say, okay, when you go out into the world next week, I want you to, you know, observe those opportunities, and I want you to do this instead of what you do. Right. And then I want you to come back and tell me that you did it.
Right.
You know, I like that. I mean, I do like to just talk and, you know, say how I feel, but I'm looking for somebody that's like active listening and, you know, giving me strategies that are specifically for the things I'm telling you I'm struggling with.
You got to be proactive. You
got to be proactive.
It's your health. It's your mental health. You got to be proactive. Like, you got to tell people what you want. It's your session, so you're the boss of it.
You can tell them what you want.
You tell them exactly what
you want.
Tell them
what you want. And, you know, I have, I've left a few therapists recently, not because they weren't good. One, she was going on maternity leave, and we had like 4 sessions, and she was like, well, I don't know when I'm coming back. And I was like, you know, send me somebody else. Right. Because I was like, I'm looking for somebody to have more of like a 6 month to a year connection with. And I loved her. I really did. But for the first time, I was just like, I'm going to just tell you this ain't going to work for me. Right. Yeah. And in the past, if someone had said, oh, I'm going to be on maternity leave, or I'm going to have to leave, I would be like, okay, well, I guess we'll just, you know, rock it out until like,
but then you have to retell your story.
Waiting for
then
you
have
to leave
get
me.
Acquainted with somebody new. And it is difficult.
It's difficult.
Very difficult.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. So my next question is, what are some coping skills that you use to help you get through the week? And we kind of already talked about that a little bit, but are there any like major ones other than writing, or like you said?
What else do I do? So I was an only child for 18 years. So I really enjoy my alone time. And I call my apartment my queendom. You know, like not too many people come to the queendom, right?
As they shouldn't.
As they shouldn't. That's my backspace.
That is your safe space. Your sanctuary. That's where you go for your self-care, mental health. Keep it.
So usually for me, it's like I've been starting with puzzles. I have a puzzle that's been sitting on my table way too long. This one has got me stumped. I'm thinking about inviting a few people over to help me just get it finished. I also like to make collage art.
Oh, nice.
So I love to just like, say if I have a necklace or something that breaks, or just some random pieces of something in my apartment, I just put all that stuff in a drawer. Okay. And then if I just need some, you know, just rock out time just for me, I just pull out all that crap And then I start thinking of like, oh, what can I can add this with this. And, you know, I like things that allow me to think. I used to like to bake.
Okay.
But then I was eating all the stuff.
Yeah, right.
So, we gotta find some things that, you know, help my mental health, but it ain't helping my physical health.
Right.
So, and if the physical health ain't right, then the mental health start, you know, so.
You gotta balance
that. Also, I'm not from Sacramento, so I've lived in a bunch of different places. So my friends and family are everywhere else.
Okay.
So I take advantage of technology as much as possible. Like I have regular video chats with friends, regular phone calls with friends. You know, friends is like a big thing to me because I'm at a point in my life now where I feel like I've curated a really good group of friends.
Nice.
And so I know who to call for what.
Okay.
You know?
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. That's a good support system.
And don't get me wrong, I will just have a glass of wine every now and again.
Girl, you got to do what you got to do. We all grown around here.
Yeah, probably more than one glass.
Right.
But you know what I mean? It's all right.
Hey,
it's okay.
You still wake up bubbly every day.
I do. I still wake up and I still do all the other things I need to do. But
God is good. Yeah, so let's switch gears and let's discuss some of your awesome craft. You just shared some of it. That's amazing. You're tapping into your creative side. I think that overall is the best
self-care. That's my self-care.
That 100%, you know, craft, all your crafts, your writing is the best self-care. If you're using your creative mind, then that's the beautiful medicine for mental health issues.
Don't get me crying in here, Jamie. Okay. Please don't.
Because, you know, it's a beautiful thing.
Right now,
it saved my life.
My art life.
You're amazing. You're taking off. I see you, girl. I see you.
It's overwhelming.
It's
truly.
Beautiful. You're beautiful.
It's truly beautiful. Overwhelming.
Yes.
When I've always been creative my whole life. When I was a kid, I used to write poems. And my family used to laugh. Honestly, it's like, oh, look at Poo Poo trying to write a little poem. I'm like, I'm not trying. I wrote that poem.
You got
know what I mean? I did that. But I will say, like, so I used to write poetry because I used to be a very angry person. Mm-hmm. Like, my temper used to be horrible.
That's that childhood trauma.
Yeah. My temper was bad, right? And so I started writing poetry as a way to like not become violent. Seriously. Right. It's like I'm gonna hit people with my words before I hit them with my fists.
Ooh, girl.
Like that's where I was at. And so I started off, you know, as a slam poet, right? Because you can bring all of that energy and that anger,
it's
you know.
Beautiful, yes.
But I would have to say now, like, I use my artistry just to like connect with other people genuinely.
And you do so
and
well.
It's working for me.
She writes, y'all. She writes.
I know she writes. Yes. I mean, even you, like I wouldn't know you if I hadn't tapped back into it, right?
I'm glad you did.
That's where I started seeing you at open mics, and then you know you introduced me to even more stuff that I love,
and it's just opening up.
It's just opening up, and like I've never been the type of person who ever considered like collaborating with my writing, but like now I have like this like real community. Like y'all are my family.
Love it. It's so genuine, and the love is real.
The love is real. The love is so real. Like honestly, you got me over here. Like I'm also like the type of person who will just cry about everything. I'm so in touch with my feelings, and I don't have no problem with it.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. Check yourself. Check your mental health. You'll get in touch with your feelings.
That's right. Check yourself.
Right. So with your craft, I know you are evolving and you have a lot of upcoming events going on. I see.
I got a couple
features,
things.
Showcases. You know, I missed the one last night. The wine and poetry at Self-Design Art Gallery.
Yeah, go there.
Yes.
You want to go there? It's a beautiful art
tonight,
gallery.
Actually, open mic. Yep.
Yeah. I'll be
open
there.
Mic. So.
So Saturday I will be one of two features at the Tea and Poetry event, which is to me just one of. I've only gone to one event, but to me the way it was curated and the location and the host. Oak Park Brewery, yeah. The host. I think I can't say enough positive things about the variety of poetry that's available. But just seeing like people come together to share their art. So Tea and Poetry on Saturday. And then in November, I got a couple things. I'll be a part of the Kings and Queens showcase. I saw you had Anthony Xavier Jackson on. Me and him are going to be.
I seen that. I seen you guys post that last night. I shared
it. We're going to be on something together. I've been calling him my cousin since we both last name Jackson.
There you go. All right.
So excited about that. And then November 15th, I will also be a part of another event that has not been promoted yet, but
to be
stay
determined.
tuned.
Hey. Well, did you want to share something before we get ready to wrap it up?
I could do that.
Okay. You can share some.
All right. Let me pull myself together.
I know the viewers will love it.
The piece that feels most relevant to share is a signature piece I share anytime I feature. And I just talk about how for so many years I was not comfortable calling myself a poet. Oh. Because when I grew up on like Langston Hughes and Maya Angelou and Alice Walker, who they are not spoken word artists, right? And I always thought, I don't write that kind of poetry. I mean, I do write a little bit more like that now, but in the beginning, I didn't see myself as a poet. And so I learned last night that there are other people who are struggling to call themselves what they are.
Right.
And the reality is, if you write poetry, you are a poet.
Right. It does feel like, okay, I'm that. I am that. I am a poet. Right? It does feel a little different.
It's hard. It's hard to own it, but I always tell people sometimes your identities determine your habits.
Right.
And sometimes your habits determine your identity.
Right.
If one of your habits is writing poetry, then your identity is you're a poet.
You're a poet.
It's that simple.
Right. She writes.
Yeah, she writes. She knows.
She knows.
So she is not a poet. She is not a poet. She is only pretending that these words go together with a ribbon simply mending, but she is not a poet. She is creative with linguistic means, equipped with reason and experience that lends itself to a connection of complex things, but she is not a poet. Her words do influence. She melds her mind with the pen, and the two just simply do it, but she is not a poet. She is a skilled orator at best. These messages are from her brain, and she is sending out a test, but she is not a poet. She is a marginalized human being with feelings. These lines are her therapy and her grandest attempt at healing, but she is not a poet. She is an artist with conviction. She wrote these words with you in mind. She hoped that you might listen, but she is not a poet. She is a teacher and her best student. She loves to read words, and what she learns she uses, but she is not a poet. Her voice merely elevates her talent. This is actually her attempt at singing. This poem is a ballad because she is not a poet.
Oh my God, my heart was just, oh my goodness, I got butterflies and everything. That is stuff. She writes, y'all. She writes. I'm telling you, she is a poet and she writes.
All right.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, we're going to wrap it up.
Okay.
This is the end of the show. Where can people find you? Social media?
So I'm only finally getting good with IG because of all the art people. Like, that's exactly what they want.
Right.
I have made more posts in the last 3 months than I've made in the past 5 years.
Right.
So you can find me on IG at Wright She Writes, which is WRITE, she, and then WRIGHTS. So Wright, like right, she writes, like right, left.
Yes, she does.
Yeah.
Yes, she does.
She does.
Yes, she does. So that's the end of the show. I want to tell y'all, well, thank you for tuning into Thursday Therapies, and check yourself, check your health. We got stickers, we got hats coming, t-shirts coming, and all the other gear. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Thank you so much.
Oh, that was awesome. That was so